This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick.
Ariel Burgess grew up in Washington, D.C. area, earned an Associates of Web Design at Montgomery College, and you can check her out at her website, artistarielburgess.com. Last name is Burgess.
Not Burger.
No. She's been the official artist for the Wheel of Time since 2012. She's painted Wheel of Time playing cards, is branched out to a bunch of film, storyboarding, and concept art. And I just want to say you have done more than any other artist to take the visual words that Jordan has put forth and make them actual paintings that we can see. And I want to say that the best costumes at the con are always based on your paintings of the characters. They're instantly recognizable.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being out there and you know, basically putting forward the vision of the Wheel of Time that we've all sort of rallied around.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of research, and I work with Team Jordan pretty closely for a long time. Now they just send me "we love it" emails, but they still correct me on stuff, and I just really care about getting it right.
And you do. I think that's what we're always really happy about as fans, is to see you just get it right over and over and over again in each one of these paintings of each one of these characters.
Well, thank you. I look back at some of the card art now and go, wow, it's really inaccurate. But I just turned 21. I just turned 22. I was 21 when we started contract negotiations, and then I turned 22 with my first Jordan Con. And I think you got to remember like where you are as a person and as an artist.
Well, if you can't look back on your old work and be critical, then you're not growing.
Right.
Which Jordan Con was your first one, Ariel?
Jordan Con 4. It was still pretty small.
Wow, that's early in the game.
Yeah, well, and I feel like I missed everything. A lot of the Jordan Con 1 people are very close-knit banded, but I've been going since Jordan Con 4, and it's kind of funny because my mother came with me the first year, and she kept telling people like baby stories. I was like, Mom, So a lot of people still kind of view me as like the kid.
So how did you originally get into the Wheel of Time, and what sort of put you on the path to making this fantastic artwork?
Well, I originally started reading it when I was 15. A boyfriend at the time, his mother read it to him when he was a kid, and he begged me to read it, so I read it, and I got really into it, and then kind of put it down, and then started reading it again, and loved looking at fan art, and just couldn't find things that really I felt matched a lot of the character descriptions. Like, I couldn't find any pictures of Lan where he looked like Lan or Moraine, and so I just started doing fan art, and then I started doing a playing card set. Somebody had requested a private little set for themselves, which I got in a little bit of trouble for, but which is okay. You learn lessons. So I did his private set, and then it kind of got a fan following on Facebook, and Tavern Tees reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to do this for realsies, but with 54 cards? I think it's like 65 characters.
That's quite an undertaking.
Yeah, but I was really excited, so I was like, yeah. It was on my last year of college, and I have an associate's, but I actually have, I went to school for 4 years because I almost got 2 degrees. I won an illustration, and I figured at the time I was in the middle of getting published and could probably not finish that one out. Yeah, they were really interested in just starting it, and we finished signing, and then they wrote me and said, hey, there's this convention. It's in 2 weeks. Do you want to come? And I was like, I have no money, but I'll find a way. Yeah, we flew down there, and they unveiled the cards at the card tournament that they do every year, the Shanshan tournament. And yeah, it was in a little room, and they pulled a sheet down and had all the cards blown up, and that I'd done so far. I think I was still working on the Trolloc card at the time. It was pretty cool. It was just kind of jumping in feet first.
So how many total cards have you done now?
Of that set, that was 54. I've redone some of them over the years. I've revamped the Moraine one, and we did a poster set series of them when they first came out, and it's like a the first 100 people, I think they printed random cards and gave posters away. I recently redid Brigida just for funsies.
Well, that's awesome. And I'm not sure which portraits are part of the card set and which aren't, but I fell in love, and I don't know if you remember this from Instagram from like a couple of months ago, fell in love with your portrait of Rand going through the crystal columns in Ruidian.
Yeah. That one is in a calendar.
Oh, awesome. I was threatening to buy it on Instagram when we went to JordanCon, and I actually was able to follow through. They told me that I bought the last one. It was like a blown up portrait. So I felt really lucky to be able to get that, especially with the rights of Wheel of Time stuff now moving over to Amazon and Sony. Sony. I felt like I was kind of getting in on our last chance. I was wondering if you want to reflect on that at all, or kind of explain to people how that works and what's happening there. I know it's a lot to unpack.
Because you recently put out a pretty lengthy letter in public.
Yep. And I've been thinking, because we knew 3 years ago. So right after JordanCon 2016, I can't count backwards, but it was 2016. We went through a lot of different things, and because of Winter Dragon, put Harriet in a difficult position. So she fought for us, but it ended up with Sony and I think Radar, and we had a 3-year contract. Usually it was 2 years, and we would renew every 2 years. It was just kind of like an unsaid renewal. But when that happened, it was just kind of like, okay, well, this is it. And so for me, a lot of the artists decided that they wanted to produce less. And for me, I was like, I want to get as much Wheel of Time as I can out there, and then tell everybody as soon as I'm allowed to. And it wasn't really something we weren't told not to do. It was just kind of an agreement of like when everyone else was ready. I was ready almost instantly. But I think everything happens for a reason. So I got to a point where before this JordanCon, I wanted to give everyone the chance to do exactly what you did, which is know that this is their last chance. So don't wait. And, just buy it when you can.
And I think that's the real important message is like, I really wish I'd known earlier, just because I feel like the window of time in order to sort of last minute buy some stuff was so short.
Mm-hmm. It was. And I wanted to tell everybody a lot sooner. But, I was trying to be respectful of how everybody else was feeling and where they're at. We also had to make sure lawyers go over everything and then I don't say anything I'm not supposed to, which I can be terrible at sometimes.
Well, we'll let you review this episode before it goes out, so we can make sure that we can redact anything that isn't appropriate. So go ahead and cuss away.
Okay. Yeah, I was asking about that. I was like,
well, based on the topic we're talking about, because this is your livelihood, and this is something that's it hurts you and all the artists who have put years of work and sweat and blood and effort into these characters. And, I'm not certainly, I was never officially licensed, and we do what we do with the podcast, on the sly. And so far, no cease and desist letter has shown up. So, I think we're doing okay, but I can only imagine that if it did and we had to stop, like, how devastating that would be to me and my life and my business.
It really does take something away. And I think, like I was saying, everything happens for a reason, because I had to go through all the emotions, and I started with anger, which is usually where I start, which is let me fight it. How can I fight this?
Whoop, I relate to that.
And there was a lot more of acceptance from the others, and we all went through everything differently. But for me, I wanted to fight it, and then I got really sad. And I can't tell you how many people have asked me how excited I am for the TV show, and my internal answer was, I'm not.
Right.
I'm sad. But as a fan, I'm apprehensive. I'm excited, like I'm a little excited, but I just stomped down that hope, So it's really good to me, if it's good, it'll be great. But it was really tough. And so writing that letter, I sat down and just kind of it just poured out. And for me, it was emotionally the right time. But I did want to give you guys a lot more. But unfortunately, it just kind of I think it snuck up on everybody because we were like, okay, we got 3 years. And then suddenly it was like, well, this is it. This is the last year. But, I think we're all open to happy possibilities. Just because our book rights are ending doesn't mean we couldn't do something with the show or be rehired to do book rights stuff later.
No, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get your voice out there, because I think the show and Sony could, really do right by the artists who are out there and who would put so much into the show. You specifically, just because, and so I want them to know that we as fans, we really do care about the community and supporting the community, and you have been such a big part of that they should be, if they want to be a success, they should be supporting the community, and that includes you.
Right. Well, thank you.
And this is such a small, tight-knit thing that, even though I only know the names of a lot of folks like JordanCon organizers and other folks that are in the community, like artist Ariel B and Tavarin Tees, from just being part of the fandom on the internet. But it's such a small and tight-knit community that I feel like that led a lot of people to, while I was discussing it with them at JordanCon, to think that some of these bigger companies might want to invite a lot of those people back because they want to be good to their, like, there's already a cult fandom here. The show isn't the beginning. Excuse the pun. Or pun not intended. The show isn't the beginning. Like, we're already here. And I hope, and it seemed like a lot of other people had hope, that those folks will be, like yourself, will be invited back to continue producing that art.
Right. Well, I always want to come to JordanCon.
Well, of course. Do you know anything along those lines, or have you heard anything, or is it just kind of way up in the air now?
I'm not sure what I can talk about.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I'm just going to say that I'm really feeling positive, but hesitant.
Yeah.
I'd like to transition away from dangerous subjects and go back to talking about how much I love your art.
Thank you.
In particular, the transition pieces where you show the character face on, and one half is sort of early, Eye of the World style character, and then you show basically where they end up, and sort of you can see what they go through, and it's an amazing way to portray what I feel like is some of the best character arcs in fantasy, and you can see it all in that one photo. And I just was wondering, like, where you came up with the idea for that, and like how did you execute that, and how did you decide to make that a series of paintings?
Sure. I started with Rand. And artists get their ideas from all over the place, but I have insomnia, and I was having trouble sleeping, and I was finally starting to fall asleep. And for me, usually right before I fall asleep, I'll get an idea, and then I'll pass out. And I just had this image of Rand standing in fire, and his Edmonds Field side was burning away into the dragon. And I was like, God damn it. So I sat up and opened Photoshop and did a quick, really rudimentary sketch of it, and then started in the morning. And just, I was never happy with the card art of him. It was, I didn't think I had the ability at the time to show the multifacetedness of his personality just in his eyes. And to me, it's always about person's eyes, but especially Rand's eyes. He has strength and sadness, and the boy that he just wanted to be, who's lost, and the weight of the world, and the anger, and Luce Theron, and just so many things, this hauntedness. So that was my main focus, was to get him right and to show really the power of what he'd been through. It's funny how many people come to me and they're like, oh, he's supposed to be missing a hand. And I'm like, actually, if you look closely, his hand is severed. And nice. I have the flesh burning away, so it's actually separating from the wrist. And the skin is dead, but you got to look really closely. To me, it's the coolest thing when people come back to me and they're like, I found all this stuff. Because I was up till 5 a.m. making sure that one person on the planet would see this little detail that I hid. But after that, they kind of took off. Everybody was like, do Matt. And so I think Matt was the next one I did. And I wanted to show the gore coming out from under his eye patch, and the jewelry on one side and the dagger on the other. And I think Perrin was the next one. And I remember I finished Nynaeve at like 5:45 in the morning.
I think Moraine might be my favorite one.
Yeah.
With the Gleeman's Cloak on one side, because just like, I mean, the relationship with Tom, and the fact that we get her back, you know, after the going through the doorway, and who did the costume last year?
Leslie.
Leslie, yes, Leslie Anise. I mean, such a great costume.
She just blew me away.
Yeah.
You know, there's a big backlash on that one, on the painting, because I had a lot of people who were very upset that I showed nudity with her. And I think it happens a lot with women, and especially female characters. They get put on this pedestal that if they're in any way nude, which is in our society viewed as sexualized, then they are lesser than. And Maureen has this very saint-like following. But I don't know what book they read, but she's naked all the time in those books.
Right.
And when she is saved, she's naked.
Right.
And that was the point. It was to be, the way I was thinking of Moraine for that piece was literally the moment that he gives her the cloak of her grabbing her staff, which she didn't have at the time, but grabbing her staff, kind of standing up and wrapping the cloak around herself in a power pose. And it's the moment she freezes when she stands at full height. That's what I wanted to capture. And then have the other side show the way that she looked in Edmund's Field.
I don't know if you saw my Gleeman Cloak at JordanCon, but that's obviously based off of your paintings. You know, the way you put that in my head is the way I think of the cloak.
Well, you know, I did a lot of research, and I talk a lot with Harriet and Maria and Alan about it, and Team Jordan, for anyone that doesn't know. Maria is just an absolute wealth of knowledge, and she and I poured over how to do the Gleeman Cloak the first time I did Tom, and that it should actually be that, you know, if you base it off of mine, it's going to be accurate, that it should have flaps to it. A lot of people kind of make it a solid quilt, but that would not be correct.
Patches fluttering, I see. Recall.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is if you just read into it, you know, you'll get the details.
Right. Well, I mean, they're in there, and Maria knows them better than anybody out there. I mean, the conversations we had with her, she's so easy to talk to, and so knowledgeable.
She's a sweetheart.
And just a wonderful person. So
Alan is great. Just all of them. They're really wonderful people, and they care so much about the fan base and about the material. And I think that's why they collected people like me and Tavern Tees, and Paul and Edsel and Joe, who cared, who loved it.
And it's a fandom full of love for the story, and like you were saying, little details that you put into your paintings, I feel like are reflective of the details Jordan puts into his books, and you sort of see that parallel. And I think that's why your art has always risen to the top, because you include the detail that is in the books, and that's something that we as readers who love that kind of detail can really, really appreciate.
It's funny too, because me as a reader is totally different than me as the artist, because I'm very dyslexic, so it's very, very difficult for me to read those books. It took me from 15 until the last one came out. That was 2005 until the last one came out in 2012, and they take me months and months. So it's very, very slow, and there are times where, since I'm a visual person, I got it. So I'd skip a little bit and then go back and, wait, where did I miss? And I'd reread and reread and reread. But as an artist, I love it, because I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do a painting, and I want to know which finger does Maureen prefer to wear her Aes Sedai ring. And it's not always talked about. Not all the Aes Sedai have a preferred finger, but some of them do. And he'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So I actually wanted to ask you a bit about being diagnosed with dyslexia, because, mental illnesses is something we've talked about both with the White Tower podcast and just a few other times, mostly around anxiety. But so that's
too.
Yeah, isn't it fun?
It's so fun, and that was one of the things. Is when we found out about the contract stuff, the biggest anxiety is that little voice kept saying, "Everyone's going to leave the moment you announce that you are no longer doing Wheel of Time. You're going to have to find a new job, a new type of job." And for me, I've always wanted to be an artist. Ever since I was a little kid, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I stuck to it. So the idea of having to be good at something else was just daunting.
Sure. No, I mean, anytime you're transitioning careers. And I mean, I guess my question is, do you think you're going to be able to continue to be an artist in the future? Is that something, or is that still something? Okay.
Absolutely.
Full time.
Do you have plans for anything new?
I do. I have several things in the works right now. I have a commission coming up that I'm pretty excited about, where I get to paint the Celtic version of the crone. And that'll be exciting. But, I'm trying to get my stuff out there. Again, there's some stuff that I can't talk about. But Patreon has been a huge boost to me. It's been a huge sign that I can do this and continue to do it full time. When I announced, I thought I would lose a lot of people. I lost 2 people and gained 8. And that was a huge, heartwarming, okay, these, you can keep doing this. And I have been doing original art for a long time. I just kind of get obsessed with Wheel of Time. So you mentioned dyslexia.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about that because I know it obviously makes you struggle with some of the longer books, but I don't know how else did it affect you growing up and learning and and in school?
It was very difficult because I was pretty good at schoolwork, but I was also treated like I was dumb and told I was dumb by teachers and kids alike because I couldn't understand it, especially math. I have dyslexia, auditory, reading, and especially in math, which was called dyscalculia. I think they changed the name. Of course, my first thought was vampires, and they were like, no, it's not that cool. And I was like, damn it. Because it was like, dyscalculia, blah. But, so I actually got diagnosed in college, and I did it because I was told that my ACT scores were so low that I'd have to take 2 semesters of math classes only, and that it'd be very difficult for me to prove that I had a disability. So I went to the disabilities department and found the person with the most art on the walls and said, hey, this is what the math department said. And they went, oh, really?
Do you scout out the offices first? I love that.
We have funding, and we would love to see what the answer is. Yeah, it was pretty validating because you can be good at one thing, because I was always known as the artist in school, but also be treated like you're terrible at everything else or feel alone. And that's part of it is I felt very alone, so I stayed home a lot and drew.
And that's one thing, I guess, is I think drawing talent comes from practice more than anything else.
It does.
Yeah.
I think anyone can be an artist as long as you practice. Some people, it might take 300 years, but I think anyone could. The thing that I think is born in is the eye for it and the eye of observation.
So how do you produce your art? Is it digital for the most part? Are you using actual? Yeah. And what tools do you use?
Well, I started out traditionally, and I've tried many different mediums, except oil, because I never had the proper space for it. But now I work, I'll often start doing, like with the transition posters and with pretty much all the Wheel of Time art, I have a pencil sketch first, where I kind of get out my ideas. And I have actually put those up for sale before, and I guess I could again. I then go and do a digital sketch, and I work in Photoshop. Primarily, I use a Wacom tablet. For the longest time, I used an Intuos 3. I'm now using an Intuos 4 Pro. They're very expensive, but if you have a very large Italian family and you ask for everybody to put a little money towards something. And I used CS3 Photoshop for a long time, but then started using the Adobe services that they do the monthly. I do want to state a lot of people think that you have to get the cloud and put your art into the cloud. You do not have to do that. As a professional artist, I'm very against using clouds because they have very interesting terms of agreement. And sometimes they say that they can use whatever you put in there. In order to protect your work, you have to read stuff.
And I've noticed that as an artist, you actually do put in some significant effort to protect your work. You would do watermark everything. Yeah, and I think that's a...
Yeah, people are crafty.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be... it's getting paid for the work you do is hard.
Right. Yeah, and when I started Patreon, I had a lot of people who were pretty upset about it because I've been doing teasers and stuff for a long time, and they were like, oh, you're so big now, you get paid to do teasers. And for me, I was like, no, this is so I can afford better food, It is tough. And I do have people steal my work on a regular basis. And it's a compliment in one way. And I try to be very nice about it if they, just post it all over the internet, because that makes me happy. I can just say, hey, thanks for sharing, just please put my name on it so other people can find me. But then I have had people who have taken like the heads of the transition posters, cut them out and put them on someone else's art and then print it on a t-shirt, which is,
oh, wow. And then just sell it online.
Oh yeah. The nice thing though is, I think the quality of Robert Jordan's work shows in the community and the type of community it is, because while it's got a lot of sex and horror and all those things, it's done in such a tactful way that you have this community of people that are loving and protective, and they're very versatile, but they're very caring. And once you're one of us, like you're one of us. And I hope that you guys got that welcome.
More than. I mean, I feel like. At the end of the con, Jimmy invited me back to watch Game of Thrones with him and a small group. And I was just like, yeah, I'm there. Like, and even if I got trapped in a room for an hour and a half, because that was a long-ass episode.
I had to wait because I was just like, if anyone talks and we have a 4K TV at home, like...
Oh, God. The projector was not set up correctly, but that's a whole different issue.
Right.
So I had to rewatch it. I did end up rewatching it just so I could see it.
They're very family-oriented, yeah.
But it was so much fun to do that in a group of Wheel of Time fan, and just experience that sort of community. And just people like I always want to shout out Tom at the con. He's amazing. He has really made a severe effort to bring us into the fold, because it is, it would be very easy for that group who has been there since year one to be a very insular group and exclude other people. And we weren't there. We can't be like, oh yeah, do you remember when?
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's not fair.
No, but they make a real effort to include us and the new people in the community.
They do. And they did from the very start. The first time I ever met any other Wheel of Time fans was in 2010 at Dragon Con. I was 20 and I was just wandering Dragon Con and looking around, and I walked into the very bottom basement. I think it was the Hyatt. And there was this little room that had some Wheel of Time flags in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, Wheel of Time. Like, wow, someone else reads this book. And I went in there, and it was a bunch of people playing Magic the Gathering with Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, wow.
And I just hung out for a few hours, and everyone was so friendly and welcoming. And it was kind of funny because at first it was mostly guys in there, and they just were like, oh, a lady who likes Wheel of Time, and just all sat around me. And I was like, oh no. But then they were so safe. And that's one of the things about Jordan Con. It is such just a welcoming, safe group of people for the most part. I mean, you do get your creeps and you do get people who are jerks, and I do get those people. And I have had people say some pretty nasty things, but on a regular basis, it's love.
And that hopefully is the exception and not accepted in any way, shape, or form.
It's not. But if you do point out anything, it gets smushed out so quickly, which is just, they have an amazing staff.
It's really incredible that it can be such a nice group, especially with, this past year, almost 1,000 people attended. I just felt like it's not your typical 1,000 people.
Yeah, it really is a special gathering. And to me, I have so many people come up and show so much love. And I always feel touched and honored when I see someone walking around with a poster or something I've done, or wearing a costume inspired by something, I made. And last year, I think something like 7 people dressed up as cosplay specifically to my art. And I got a photo with 4 of them, which was, it was mind blowing to me. And I talk to these people, and they become, friends. We go on vacation sometimes together, and it really is a family environment. I mean, the lady who posed for Grendel, she went to Dragon Con and talked to Tavern Teas, and they said, hey, Ariel lives in the DC area. You should hang out with her. She has no friends in the area because all she does is work. And I was like, thanks, guys. True story. So she contacted me, and we were friends on Facebook for a long time before she was she told me she got up the nerve to to ask me over, and she hosted like a Wheel of Time dinner, and we became, you know, really close friends. But she was like, my favorite character is Grendel, and I told her I have this idea to do these portraits of the Forsaken. Like the moment that they announced they were Forsaken, they got these official portraits done in a very Renaissance style. And so that's what I wanted those portraits to look like. And I was like, I really don't have anyone who is a Grendel who's voluptuous and very curvy and beautiful, and that's her. And she was like, can I please pose? And she did. And last year she dressed up as the painting and came to JordanCon, which was just like...
I remember that.
I didn't know she was the model. Yeah.
Really good costume.
She was the model.
How do you find your models?
By happenstance and being very friendly. Some of them are friends. The models this year for Perrin and Fail, I always mess up how to say her name, from the Tarot Card series.
Pretty well.
Yeah, I kind of liked her sometimes. I really liked Perrin for a long time. He was actually one of my favorites. And I was listening to your podcast earlier about, I forget which one it was, but you were mentioning how Egwene and Perrin had kind of a thing, and I definitely was like, I ship these two. But yeah, the models for Perrin, Fail, excuse my cat.
Oh, what's his name?
My cat's name, Pyewacket.
Pyewacket?
It's from an old movie. The model for Grendel was there again this year. The acting director of media of JordanCon was my model for Morden. He modeled for Lan, this for the tarot card, actually, and also the transition poster.
High compliment. Someone would ask me to model for Aslan.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people come back to me and they're like, well, the face doesn't look like them. And of course it's not going to look like them. It's what I tend to do is, to get back to the process, I'm all over the place. Once I do a digital drawing, I then get models because I'm very reference heavy, and will pose them in several different ways that I want to try with lighting, and take photos, and then I'll draw from the photo, and sometimes I'll do like a little tracing over and then go like change as I go. And then I will take a lot of different actors that the fans suggest as the character that fit the actual description, and then I'll draw from that. Then I will rework in the personality of the character on top of that line work. That's how I get these really, really accurate faces.
So I've got a couple of questions coming in from Discord. Do you have a particular artist that you use for inspiration, or you're particularly inspired by anyone?
I'm inspired by a lot of people. I find the other artists for the Wheel of Time inspiring. We don't really look at each other as like competition. I also like Stefan Sejic, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He's a comic book artist I just love. Todd Lockwood, who I got to meet and dance with at JordanCon. And you meet a lot of really cool people at JordanCon, too.
Oh, yeah.
I try not to look up the special guests so I don't get all, like, verklempt when I meet them. I love Dan DeSantis' work.
That's something that's different about the con as well. Like most, like a bigger cons, you're going to have to look the person up and seek them out. At JordanCon, you're going to end up talking to them, and if you don't know who they are, you're going to be more relaxed. So,
yeah, you'll be like waiting in the same line at the bar, which is one of the really cool things about JordanCon.
Yeah. I've hung out with Sanderson quite a few times, and we haven't really gotten a lot of time to talk, and I haven't really read through his books. I started reading Mistborn, but it's just never been the right time for me to get into it. Charles Urbach is another one. He comes to JordanCon, and he is extremely inspiring. His work is colored pencil. He works in Magic the Gathering, and I'm inspired by a lot of people. My family, my mother was a fused glass artist and a painter. My father was a cartoonist, and my grandmother was an artist for the Yellow Pages.
Oh, that's cool. What kind of art did she produce for the Yellow Pages? Is it just like drawings of businesses and
illustrations?
Stuff like that? Illustrations,
yeah. Before they had, they were using, they weren't using photographs as much because it was more expensive to hire a photographer, and she would just draw like trucks and massage therapy ads, and so when I was a kid drawing and like watching Disney movies and drawing, and I have my mother and my grandmother being like, that's not what anatomy looks like. And I'd be like 5, I'd be like, what's anatomy? Having been critiqued since I was very little. And so I do get fans sometimes that are like, oh, can't you take a critique? And I'm like, oh, dude, you just don't know how to critique. It's called a sandwich.
The compliment sandwich?
Yes.
Yeah. Compliment, critique, compliment.
A lot of different artists. I'm inspired by a lot of people, and not always people who are visual artists. I like podcasts and reading. And
Well, you just won me over by saying you like podcasts. Not that you haven't won me over many times already. Another question coming in. We as a group produced a small fan film trailer, which is just basically a bunch of us saying lines from the film and mostly your art as the visuals. And I was just wondering if you had a chance to see that, and they were wondering if you had a chance to see it and if you had any opinions on it.
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, I'll have to send you that link.
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny. I feel like I've missed this big gap of like really like a wealth of fandom, because I see you guys posting stuff, and I see that you follow my things and share stuff, and same thing with Daniel Green, some of his stuff, and I spent a lot of time looking at like fan art, and sometimes I'm just a fan and I just want to see like what are other people doing, but also sometimes I run across like, oh, that's plagiarism, let me write this person. Right. But I've just missed out on a bunch of things, so I've been trying to like catch up on some of the stuff that you guys did, and but no, I missed that one.
I'll send you a link, but I don't think we really meant to, but this sort of whole side fandom sort of grew up because there was this central fandom centered around Jordan Con and Dragon Mount, and there's that group of people, and they created many resources, the wiki, the FAQ, all that kind of stuff, and then I feel like this sort of slightly younger generation came up with the social media and the podcasting and the YouTubes. God, how old am I? And like there was whole
booking.
Yeah, right. Like
YouTube.
And so like there was this Facebook sort of node of fandom, and then there's this sort of other side. And one of the things about Discord, I love it because we can very carefully moderate it and make it a safe space, but it's also very separate from the rest of the internet. And so if you're not a part of it, you don't realize just how much is going on this server. And so that's something that I've struggled with.
Well, and I've had a lot of people suggest, that I join it, and I started with Facebook. So the hard thing for me is that as a freelance illustrator, because that's I was always contracted with Bandersnatch, and originally started with contract with Tavern Teas, and then eventually with Bandersnatch, where I could sell my Wheel of Time art individually. But it was always a contractor. Is that I'm the marketer, I'm the accountant, I'm the artist, I'm the person answering everybody. I wear a lot of hats, and so for me, I started with Facebook, and I was like, okay, I can handle this. And then I started Twitter, which I was like, I can't handle this. But I was like, I love these people. No one can handle Twitter. Right. But the people there are really wonderful to me. And I'm, especially lately, so very touched by them. And I started Instagram, and I was like, this is something I really feel is geared towards me. But Discord is something I've been suggested to do for a long time. And it was just like, oh, I got to learn something new.
Right.
Which was tough.
Well, I was just going to say, I think me and Seth can both really relate to the many hats thing, where you're simultaneously trying to learn new things and keep up with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, and there's all this stuff happening at once. There's no way for one person to even dip your toes into each one.
Right. And YouTube is another one that I'm have tried dipping into for every few years. I've started recording my work a little more often. I have to get together the Maureen, but I did record most of the painting of the tarot card for her. But it was so infrequent to me because it was so difficult to figure it out, and then how to promote it, how to share it, and you're thinking about all this stuff, and you're like, and then I have people online being like, hey, draw this scene, hey, draw this scene, hey, draw this scene, and I'm like, man, I just want to go to bed.
I've heard that so much, and I have this conversation pretty frequently with artists that I know just in our physical community, and then, and any content creator that if you're going to go out and do something like what you're doing or like what we're doing, which are totally different, you not only have to wear all those hats, you, I guess what I'm trying to get at is I have a friend that I was always really envious of because she makes a living selling her art. And I always thought, wow, that's so cool that you get to do what you love to do for a living. That must be amazing. How does that feel? And she'd always be like, no, you don't understand. She's like, yes, I get to make art sometimes, but she told me basically she ends up spending the majority of her time marketing and actually selling it, because you can make the most beautiful art in the world, if nobody knows it's there, they're not going to buy it.
Right, you can be really good, and it doesn't really matter. If you're really good at marketing is really the thing, and I could have a lot more followers than I do if I spent more time in it. I also probably shouldn't answer every single person, but I feel like eventually there's going to be a point where I can't. And my Cooper, my partner, does, he is an admin, sometimes will answer for me, but he'll always ask me. But I do feel like everybody deserves, they took the time to say something kind or a critique or whatever, even just put up an emoji. Like, I should take the time to thank them. But it's tiring.
It's a burden, yeah.
It is, but I'm so grateful for them. Like, I wouldn't be where I am without these people.
And I one of the things that we've been able to do with Discord is we've organized the people to actually help us. And so having Discord for us has actually been a boon in terms of providing almost a staff. I know you've got Cooper, but we've got Discord, and like Discord is super useful. And we can assign things to individual people. And, what we find is that the fandom loves to organize itself into a helpful community. So,
and I've noticed that with mine.
And Patreon's a big part of that. So that's sort of, I've noticed folks who support us on Patreon, well, they've got a little bit of financial investment in what I'm doing, and it's I know it's a psychological trick, but once they've got a little bit of financial investment, they're willing to put a ton of time and effort into making us successful. So you've been saying Patreon's great, and I'm totally agreeing with you. It's been one of the most wonderful things for what we're doing and what's kept us going.
Because I do respond to people and I do promote an air of, you can disagree, but we're going to be nice to each other. You can cuss, because I certainly can cuss, and I'm sure I can out-cuss you.
Sure. I'd like to see you fucking try.
There's a friend of mine at JordanCon. We just say the nastiest things to each other all the time, and it's like literally to make each other laugh, to see like who can just shock the other one. And a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, you guys are like, you hate each other," and I was like, "No, like." Because I hurt my knee at this JordanCon. I was in a wheelchair, and he came by, and he was like, "Really? Still?" And he came up, and he was like, "I bet this is so you can keep your rights."
Good sympathy points.
I almost fell out of my chair laughing. It was so funny. But I have such a good community that, if people do steal my art, sometimes I don't even have to say anything. I've already got like 46 people that have like publicly shamed this person into taking it down or corrected them. Because my stance usually is, even if they did print something, sometimes people just really don't know the law, and they see it's on the internet and they think, oh, it's free. There was a guy who this past February printed my matte transition poster on a hoodie with the watermark still on it. He didn't even like buy a poster and scan it. He just printed that, and it was all stretched, and it was just like, I looked at it like aesthetically, it was like, it's stretched.
Right.
Oh, it's terrible. And he printed it for himself, and he was like, "Hey, JordanCon, everybody look at this, cool." And a lot of people got really mad, and I said, "Hey, thanks for being a fan, but can you at least buy a poster from Tavern Tees, and please don't do this again." We sell awesome shirts with that exact design. Here's a link. And people, the fan base really does, they help. I think my best example of that was while I'm working on these posters and all the art illustrations, I want to be as accurate as possible. And sometimes the time it takes to find the right book, to find the right chapter, to find the right quote is hours. I was working on Matt's transition poster, and I got on, and I wanted to have the saying on Ashandre, the actual saying in the old tongue, because it is in the old tongue on Chandra. But in the book, he only writes it in English ever. So I was like, how do you... Whereas, the Let's Toss the Dice, he says that in the old tongue. So I was like, how do I say this? And I went on my Facebook page and said, hey, fans, does anyone have a lexicon of the old tongue and, translation to English so I can look at the lettering? And within 5 minutes, I had 10 different people that had given me, the letters, our letters compared to theirs. And I was able to sit, and I took about a half hour and made the actual saying. And I have a file on my computer that's I think the only version of it written is the way it's supposed to be, because it matters.
It does. And I just wanted to emphasize how valuable I find the people who do that kind of work, which is they have that information at their fingertips, and you can just shout out into the internet void, help me with this, and what comes back is often overwhelming response and support.
Right. And I think the really hard part is to not overextend yourself in thanking them.
Right.
And in doing nice things, because it's not like I can be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, and then send like everyone a free art print, because it's like, I'll do art while I live in a box on the street.
I've actually just outsourced the sending out of Patreon merch to some of our fans. So I basically order it directly to their house, and they're going to repackage and send it back out again. And that just really saves me so much time and effort. And it's just like a little thing that someone can do that makes a big difference in our ability to keep producing podcasts.
Absolutely. For me, one of the things that I've been overwhelmed with is I came back and got sick, of course, because you do.
Congrud.
Right. Usually I would get bronchitis, and I didn't this year. So I was like, yes, we're getting better. But I also had this knee thing and could barely walk. So I had to cancel a commission recently because I had so many private orders for posters or pieces that I had left that I've been working for 2 weeks now. I think, it's been 2 weeks since JordanCon ended? I've been working since JordanCon ended on private orders. And it's so time consuming. Coordinating with people and making sure like the payment method works for them and their shipping address. And I have somebody that I'm trying to work with who lives in Poland, and I really, really, really want to get her art, but I looked at the USPS shipping rate. It was like $530 just to ship her a painting. And I was like, I can't do that.
And you're like, and I've had people be like, well, I'll pay it. And I'm like, I can't charge you that. Like, it's just not,
Okay, well, stop doing that. Stop that. If they're willing to pay you, you let them pay you.
Oh, I just mean it's not worth it for, merch or whatever.
And that's something I have learned is I try to like work within people's budget and their comfortable level. Also, if they really want to do it and you are willing to put in some of the effort, let them do it, because I want to still try and find a way to help that person in Poland, because they talk. I have a fan base on Instagram. There's a Aes Sedai group that's really cool, and I recently joined them, and I went through the whole. They made me go through the whole process to become an Aes Sedai. I had to do the testing and everything, and it was really fun. A lot of them are based in Siberia.
Huh.
How cool is that?
We've noticed a large population of fans in Finland and Norway. That's, so there's just, little places like that, these little niches that love the Wheel of Time. It crosses cultures in a way that I don't think a lot of other books do.
Right. Italy has a really big fan base. I actually had the Italian Federation of Wheel of Time fans reach out to me a couple years ago.
Wow, they're organized.
And they were really upset. Yeah, they were really upset that their translations of the books are very bad. They things like character names are switched. She's a Siamese. She talks a lot.
I was going to say, for the record, leave the cat in.
Oh, yeah. Timber frequently, my dog, appears on these podcasts, so animal noises are not unknown. Yeah,
leave the animal noises in.
Right, yeah, she's mighty cute. She has big blue eyes.
Oh, we'd love to see a picture in the Discord if you get a chance.
Her name's Piewacket. I see people asking. Yeah, Yeah. So, apparently the tour is not known for doing very good translations to other languages. And they were very upset. And I told them, like, look, the only person I know at Tor was the art director, and I'll try to pass it up the line. So I wrote Bandersnatch and said, hey, this group of people's really upset. But thank you for writing to me, because I don't have a lot of sway. I've had people reach out to me and ask, like, hey, can you tell the Amazon writers team, blah, blah, blah. I email them.
Was there immediate action based on the word of Ariel Burgess that they sprang into action to translate the entire 14-book series?
Silence.
Yeah. The CEO of Amazon checked his email, and no, that's not how it works, guys.
Jeff Bezos, you better. No, I've sent my portfolio. I've sent a resume. I did a quick Q&A with one of the team members who I did talk to a little bit, who I know, Sarah, who came to JordanCon this year. I've known her a long time, which she is a fantastic makeup artist. She did a Trolloc on year, I think, 4 or 5. If you guys ever see really realistic looking Trolloc, she did the makeup for that. But we talked a little bit, but other than that, I've heard nothing. But wonderful fan kindness. I figure they're busy. We'll see, though, because at a certain point, the kind of work that I can do on this series is going to get... I won't be able to do very much anymore. I'm more of a pre-production person.
I kind of wanted to mention before, I've actually gotten the same thing through Watch Spoilers, like Instagram or whatever. People will occasionally, I guess, stumble on one of our pages out there and then send me a message just asking some specific information about the show or something. I always try to politely explain, like, no, I don't know anything. I know as much as you. I only know what can be Googled.
Right. And I'm excited that they have fans who are part of it. To me, if I remove myself from the process and thinking about it from a financial perspective, if I were in their place, hiring people who are already experts. I mean, Linda, who does the 13th Depository, if you've ever read that website, Linda knows everything. I think she knows more than Maria. And it's insane the amount of research that she does. The comparisons of societies and clothing, down to the stitching, which is the way Robert Jordan worked.
I use 13th Suppository as a reference a lot, very frequently when I'm trying to research something specific.
I don't know if you got to speak to her, but she, the founder and the one who does all of it, she goes to JordanCon almost every year. And she was on my very first panel with me. She would be a wealth of knowledge. And then people like me who've also done all this research, you're saving money and time on hiring people to do extra research. You're saving money on time just to open a book and reread something when you've got someone like one of us who's just like, oh, it's this, and we can answer it for them. For me, I can not only do that, but I can draw it, and that also saves time.
And you mentioned Sarah, and I know she's hopefully doing some of that for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's read it like 30 times. And that's where they get consultants.
There are so many more of us out there.
Yeah. Well, and I would love to, and of course they can't hire everyone, but for me, I would love to work on at least costume design. Something I've been concerned about is, like you said, a lot of my art has become the thing that people envision. I'm afraid I'm going to not be involved and then turn on the show and see Rand wearing a jacket that I designed and know there is not a lot I can do about it.
So speaking of anxiety.
That's interesting. That's, something I hadn't really considered.
So like, how do I protect my derivatives? And to me, I don't want to go after anyone. I just would love to be a contribution.
You want to be a part of that, not watch it from the outside.
Right. And I do understand that all things do come to an end and all the power to them, but it would be nice after this many years to still get to be a part of it. I still have ideas, and I still have a love for the series that will always be near and dear to my heart.
There's two more questions coming from Discord. First one is guys. It's like the worst interview question ever. Where do you want to be in 5 years? That's like a terrible question.
With your art.
With your art. Fair enough.
I would say I want to be in Fiji, with, Long Island.
By the way, I just have to comment on something really quick. Cooper is a photocopy of John Barrowman and looks just like Captain Jack Harkness. So, Captain Jack Harkness. So if you take him...
Those Trollocs, yes.
Yeah. So, on that island in Fiji, you will be very well off with him.
Well, thank you. Yeah. He's very talented, too. Doing all the video and some of the photography for JordanCon. And is also a very nice person.
Yes, I didn't unfortunately get to speak with him as long as I'd like to. Just because I met you guys on the last night of the con. Yeah.
And I was so out of it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about you. He just came in and went, "Are they talking about me?"
Yeah, we sure are. But yeah, no. So obviously I was enthralled in conversation with you because that was very exciting for me.
Yeah. Well, and I was so sad to meet you and to meet Daniel on the very last day because that's usually the day that I don't have much of a voice and I'm tired and I'm having a hard time thinking straight. And then with an injury, it was just like really out of it.
Sure.
So I was like, I hope I don't sound really loopy.
Oh, not at all. You were very coherent, actually. And
thanks. Yeah. Well, where do I see myself in 5 years as an artist? Where I would like to be. Attending a lot more convention, being able to sell regularly, where I'd really, really like to be. Working on the series, having a more stable income, and then getting to do art that I love and I want from the heart directly to the community and my Patreon. And I think the con circuit is... Those people that do it are heroes and admirable. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Charles Urbach, I don't know what convention he doesn't do. He's never home, and it's exhausting. And to me, I don't know if maybe I'm underestimating myself, but I don't know if I have it in me. I'll do it.
And I want to shout out your Patreon here because I joined after the con because it's amazing. You there's all sorts of great content on there. You get these high resolution desktops, and there's obviously lots of different levels with lots of different rewards. But guys, go support Ariel on Patreon. Do
it.
It's the right thing to do, and it's going to be the best way to get her content going forward, I think.
Thank you. I love posting on the stuff there. And, it does take extra time. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't think about, even with things like Patreon, is that while I'm painting, I'm stopping to create little tutorials or breakdowns, or I save in progress pieces where you can see, from sketch to finish, like with the land piece, you can see that. And then pretty soon here, I'm going to be posting the video of Maureen, and I have one of Indiana Jones already up that I did, and they're all different levels. I've considered moving around my levels a little bit and getting rid of some of the higher ones. I did do private tutoring for a little while, and that's my highest level. Is I had students, which was really fun. They just all had crazy life stuff that came up, but it's really fun to have a Patreon community. The only thing that I've noticed about Patreon that I'm not as crazy about is it's pretty quiet. The comments I don't get many comments or any messages or likes. It's just often I feel like I'm posting to the wind.
And what we've noticed is that Discord is where the conversation happens, and then
right.
And basically we could link our Patreon on our Discord, and if you donate on Patreon, that gives you access to things like this live recording. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, I don't know if you can tell, but we have a fairly active community here on Discord.
Yeah, I love it.
But Patreon is dead. We don't have really. I'll post stuff up there occasionally, but
it's not really a social space.
Yeah, it's not. So that's something I've struggled with because I, for the longest time had Facebook and it was so active, and it's gotten less active, a lot less active, even though I have more people on it. When I started, I had this little band of a little rebel few, and we would talk all the time about pieces, and those people really got a say on the art. They would say like, hey, can you flip it? Or hey, can you, make so-and-so's dress more like this? And I'd do it. And, it was cool to me to know that my fans felt like they were part of the creation of the art. And I felt like Patreon was a really good space for that, but they've been a lot more quiet, which I really am always open to suggestions as long as it's respectful. I think the exact quote for Maureen was, "You made her look like a whore."
Oh, Jesus.
So that was, I was like, well,
Oh boy.
nudity means whore. Sure. To answer the question of how's my knee, it's okay. I can hobble around. I'm not supposed to. I hyperextended a ligament in the side of my knee, and I did it in a very stupid way, which is how I always hurt myself. I was dancing at the Jordan Con dance, and my friend who was having a really rough night, I went to go be silly and make her laugh, and Gangnam Style came on, and I was like, I'm gonna be really stupid and do the Gangnam Style, and I lifted my leg and my knee just went out from under me, and that was that. Yeah.
Rough. At least that's a good way to go down,
Yeah, I felt it roll, and then I was just like, nope, not putting weight on that anymore.
So
gotta
you telling me you hurt your knee Gangnam Style? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's pretty, it's embarrassing, but I'm just trying to own up to it, If you guys saw on the Facebook, I'm pretty good at accidentally being hardcore and hurting myself. But I think that's the thing, though, is you get really tired. And I actually spent a lot of Saturday night talking business with people, talking Patreon, talking legal stuff. It's pretty exhausting. And then you get to a point where you're like, I want to have fun. And then you add alcohol and exhaustion to that. And, things break.
Yeah. Mostly, I think on Sunday, I got up and I did my panel. And then afterwards, it was just the last bit of my energy. And I was like, I have to go back to my room and collapse. And people are like, yeah, you do. You're real pale. Like, you are not, we can physically see you're turning green. It's a 3-day marathon, the con is. And especially when you're trying to do business and have fun.
Right. And it is mostly business. But I just, I love the fans there. And to me, it's fun. There's not even nip. No, there is not. You're right. I mean, there's some fantastic cleavage there, but no, there's not even nip.
And you didn't get comments on like that from Grendel, and there's plenty of nip in that one.
Yeah, there's like full on nipples. Yeah. There's vagina in that one if you look really close.
Right.
For people who are listener only, I just posted up. Just a second ago we were talking about the picture of Moraine, and I went and Googled it because I wanted to see, and it's just like her hip is out on the side. Right. I don't really, I don't get it, or what the criticism is.
Yeah, I never got it too, because I thought about when she was saved, but also when she ran through the Aiel Waste. I mean, she was. They were like, take your clothes off, and she was like, done. I'm gonna run through this stuff because I'm a bamf. To me,
wait, what's
really
the B
cool
in Banff?
Badass motherfucker.
Okay, got it.
The cool part to me on the painting was that she's got the letter to Tom and the Dragon's Treaty on her hip. But it's cool. And the Tower of Genji and the White Tower in the background, balanced by Rand's sword.
Okay.
No one cares about that.
Oh, we do. We do.
Makes me wonder if Edsel got any shit for his Moraine portrait. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about.
Yes,
she's
beautiful.
Fully nude, I believe, if my memory serves, and it's that he painted a picture of her being captured essentially by the fin. I'll shorten it and get it right.
The Eilfin and the Elfin.
Yeah, that's funny. I wonder if that has to do with you being a woman, or
I don't know, because sometimes people think that I'm a man, which
really Ariel.
Oh yeah, it's a gender neutral name, but it's more a male name in the Middle East.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So to me, it is kind of funny. I had someone reach out one time asking for a book cover, and they said, let me know your schedule. Talk to your wife about it. And I looked at Cooper and I was like, do you want to be my wife? And he was like, yes. So it's like, why does, like, oh no, I have a vagina, I can't draw anymore. Everything's broken. Like, why does that matter? Yeah, there's Etzel's piece. It's beautiful. I love that piece. The only problem I had with it is like there's like a laser coming out of her nipple.
Oh yeah, is that to like blur out the nip a little? I think.
Right. Well, being friends with Etzel, I got to laser nipples. I got to walk over and punch him in the shoulders and be like, Etzel, what's with the laser nipple? And he was like, Etzel's a talker, so he's like, well, I was doing this and I got really inspired and. So, and then he's like, and then I noticed it, but it was too late.
Yeah, because it's like coming out of her knee too.
Right. It's just laser knees. It's like Laser Cat Part 2.
Yeah, his stuff is much more stylized, I'd say. And it's which I always want his stuff in like a stained glass window in like a Wheel of Time church.
Right. Wheel of Time church.
Oh, you don't think we're starting a religion around this sucker?
We've been talking about
I know.
that for a while now.
You guys are. I'm on board. I'm very much
the cult
on
of the
board.
wheel coming to a town near you.
Yeah, no, and I think it is really funny the way that people get just very their panties in a bunch about stuff because it just men's panties and women's panties because RJ he wasn't shy about a lot of stuff. He didn't write sex scenes because Harriet told him he was terrible at it.
Which George R. R. Martin needed a wife to tell him that as well.
I actually didn't know that. That is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, she was like, just don't. And he was like, okay, because she's a smart lady. She's his editor for the first few books. But he didn't shy away from stuff. There was all kinds of horror and scary stuff and nudity, and there was a lot of stuff implied. I was listening earlier, and you guys were talking a bit about the pink ribbon scene, and I am really curious to see what they do with that, because the first time I read it, I was really young and didn't catch it and was like, oh, well, he's into this, whatever. And then when I read it as an adult and had been through that kind of situation where you're that scared or uncomfortable, I was like, wow, this is rape, this is sexual assault, and he's clearly not happy to be here. Yeah, Shadowhair with Masana.
Oh.
It has, the series has depth and value. It has so much depth to it, and it really is worth rereads because you get so much every time. But two, you do pick up stuff as you get older. So I'm curious to see how they address that. Because I've had so many fans be like, no, it's not. He enjoys it. And it's like, yeah, but, like you said, switch the genders.
I really appreciated that was in there. And I feel that the same thing happened to me when I read the series pretty early, as a teenager, and
right.
Also, social justice or SJW stuff it didn't exist at that time, or maybe it did, and I just wasn't aware of it. And yeah, at the time, I really feel like I shrugged it off because the genders are reversed. I was like, haha, it's funny, Matt's, and it's kind of taking the same stance that Nynaeve and people are like, getting a little of his own medicine or whatever. And and then, rereading it after that, when I was much older, I was like, this is really messed up.
Right. Yeah. I was listening to the audiobook recently with Cooper because we do a lot of long drives. I just couldn't wait for the scene to end, and I got a new appreciation for Matt because he's not always been he's definitely not my favorite, and I don't think he ever will be, but he was pretty, wow, memes so fast. But I got more of an appreciation for him and the depth of him, and more understanding for his later actions as to why he was a lot more hesitant about a lot of things. There was a little part of me that was like, well, you definitely not your own medicine, but as a womanizer, maybe you have a little bit now more of an understanding of like, you shouldn't treat people that way, but, definitely not ever have that happen.
I wonder, could he have committed to 2 on without experiencing a quote unquote taste of his own medicine?
Well, it's definitely another level.
Yeah.
Of there's one thing being like, hey, pretty lady, sit on my lap, which is very uncomfortable, and I have had someone do that to me. But it is a big difference when somebody ties you to a bed and, you know, does things to you that you don't want. But I don't think so. I don't think that he would have gone with Tuan. No, I'm really not a fan of her. But as you guys were talking about before, I'm not a fan of the Sean Chen for obvious reasons.
I know Patrick really loves their relationship, but at the same time, obviously the culture itself is hugely, hugely problematic.
Yeah.
Well,
the Sean Chen culture is obviously problematic in a bunch of different ways, but I like the pairing of Matt and Tuan because they're so very different people,
right?
That it seems really unlikely, and it's just interesting to watch them interact.
That I do enjoy, yeah. And I love the styles of the Sean Chen. I think the machinations that RJ always put into creating his societies and how they were lots of little different pieces of our real world societies was always just really fascinating to me as a history fan.
Did you do the an Ogier Gardner?
I did not.
Okay.
That was Seamus Gallagher, who I've never met.
Right. Why haven't you done because I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen you do the Sean Chan armor or helmets, and
I wanted to. It's just the opportunity never really came up. A lot of the time, I would come up with either my own ideas or Tavern Teas would give me a prompt. Like with the calendars, we got a list of scenes to choose from, and then all decided upon which to do. And the first calendar I got to do on my own, but it was a list of scenes, and usually they were not part of it. Designing the gardener, especially theirs, but even the High Lord and Lady costumes would be just so cool.
Right. There's just so much detail and ceremony, and you can do things with those. They don't have to be necessarily functional clothes. Some of the Sean, anyway, yeah. Matt and his big shoulders and cowboy hat.
Right, yeah.
I'd love to see that.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, how he transitioned in that. I always felt she was a little, abusive to him, verbally abusive, the whole toy thing. I get pet names and everything, but your significant other is a person and should be, at the very least, an equal.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has, again, if we talk about the damaged Sean Chan culture, you've got, this is the idea of actually being supported by your partner is new to Tuan. She's used to being tried to kill. Like, she's expecting to marry someone and have that person try and kill her to take power. The idea of having a supportive relationship rather than a contentious one, she immediately calls him toy in order to put him in his place because she's worried about basically being in a fight to the death with him.
Right, usurped. Which I would love to see where their relationships, where it went. For me, I felt the series was very unfinished. I think one of my biggest pet peeves is that Elaine was still pregnant. That just I think I slammed the book and closed it, and it was like, but she's still pregnant.
Right. No, it's not the ending of the story. We don't get all the ending of most of the characters' stories. I mean, obviously the ones who die, but Gwen. But yeah,
I sobbed.
Yeah.
That really ugly cry. I closed the book and just sobbed and put the book aside, and I couldn't read it for 2 weeks because she was my favorite character. She is my favorite character. I related the most to her. I was the same age range. Also very short, also big brown eyes, very stubborn. And I would have done the same thing with the Aes Sedai because they were being dumb.
That's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, that Egwene's one of your favorite characters, because when Seth and I are discussing her as a character as we go through the series, we always talk about her as extremely ambitious, which is why I think we both think she gets a lot of hate on the internet because she's an ambitious woman. And, nothing's going to stop her, and she'll break the rules to succeed. And in her case, succeed is to save the world.
Right. Well, and she grows, I think, the most out of any of the characters.
Sure.
And yeah, she was pretty short-sighted when it came to boys, but name a 15-year-old girl who has boys right.
Oh, my, yeah. Or any 15-year-old that has anything right.
Especially relationships.
Right, and she looked up to Nynaeve, who also has some very toxic behavior, and was like, well, this is the way to be. But as she got older, towards the end of the series, she looked down on Nynaeve, like, wow, you got some growing to do, because, you can't talk to people like that.
Right, because she's only 26, like, she's the wiser, older 26-year-old, and I'm like, damn, like, that's not that old.
Yeah, they're both barely adults.
Right. Her death to me was it was not only the hardest, but it was, I get the purpose of it and everything, but I really worried that the Aes Sedai were going to go backwards and lose all their progress. I wondered what they were going to look like in, 100 years or more with her leadership.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is when she says she's like confronting Tuon and that I plan to live centuries line. So good. And like I would really wanted to, again, imagine her living centuries, watch and fighting the Tuon Seanchan Empire.
Right.
I think that would be just fucking good.
I would love.
And that was my fears, that the Seanchan eventually, because of her death, were going to come on in and take everything over. And I was just like, slavery is bad, like, in all forms.
Right.
And if you think it's okay to, like, chain someone up against their will, like, no, I can't get behind you.
I'm firmly of the opinion that the secret will eventually destroy slavery. The fact that the Soldam can learn to channel is simply unsustainable.
Right. Well, and there isn't much of them left either. They all kind of got to live together now. That was my hope. And I'm interested to see where the show goes and what questions they can answer. I know there was an entire chapter that RJ had intended to have that was not written because they just didn't have enough information for that final chapter of the book series. Mm-hmm. I would love to know just the notes, what that said, and that he had a book planned on Tam Althor as well.
Yeah. Can we just say that the death of Robert Jordan was a huge tragedy to us all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. I know his wife very well, and I know his assistants and the people he worked with, but I never got to meet him, and to work so closely on his series to ask him, what did you think? Mm-hmm. Why did you choose this? I can definitely tell you, knowing Harriet, I see a lot of her traits in all of the women in the series,
sure,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I almost feel like I know Harriet just from reading the books. I'm like, oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so intimidated to talk with her.
She's very sweet.
She's so sweet. Yeah, I know, but that doesn't
sweet.
mean I'm not totally fanning.
Oh, yeah. The first time I met her, I was really nervous.
Have you ever spoken with Kate Redding and Michael Kramer?
I have not.
Because obviously they are also people who have done a huge amount of work on this series, but they sort of, I'm assuming, doing it from the privacy of their sound booth.
Yeah,
certainly they must have consulted on pronunciations and things like that. But
they did.
I think of them as creating the auditory signature of the Wheel of Time, while you've created the visual signature of it. So,
yeah, absolutely, and thank you. Where somebody was asking, come to SpoilerCon, like, do they mean in the chat or?
Oh, so I guess
is it actually a place?
In last year, we sort of had a little meetup, and it got bigger than we thought, so we organized it a little more. So in Portland in September, we're going to be having a little get together, and basically SpoilerCon is what we're calling it. And there's 30 plus people have already committed to it, so.
Oh, dang, it's late September, because I'm actually going to be in Seattle in early September.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see. It always depends on money. I get asked all the time to come to conventions. I've been asked a lot to come to Europe, and I just, give me a couple $1,000 and I will. Oh, well, I've only had that happen once. I pay for every Jordan Con, and then the money that I make pays for that and makes it worth coming back the next year financially. And that's a tough thing, is a lot of people think that I come for free, but it's about $1,200 for me to go to Jordan Con.
How far away are you?
Well, I was in Washington, D.C., and I used to drive, but it comes down to the art, getting the art printed, getting it properly mounted, which I do myself, getting it framed. I used to do custom framing, but I found out a lot of people would change out the frames anyway, and why spend a month or a month and a half making a specialty frame that someone's just going to throw away. But yeah, a lot of the materials, flight, or the gas money. Now I'm living in Minnesota. Yeah, no longer gas money. The flight,
yeah.
The hotel, and those hotels. If you're staying from Thursday to Monday, which we always do, is about is a little over $500, and then you have to get the booth. And little things like making sure my business cards are updated, and I have Sharpies to sign stuff. I can't tell you how many Sharpies I go through, and they die so fast.
They do, yeah.
Every time someone comes, can you sign this? And I'm like, God bless America, this is dead. And I do carry multiple Sharpies, but somehow, by the magic of my wizardry, they always all die at the same time.
Sure.
So it is quite expensive. I'd like to do a lot more conventions, and things like Patreon help me go to more conventions. And I have goals on that to reach a lot more of them. And to buy a car, because I also don't have a car, and that would help. Living in the DC area, it's good transit.
Yeah, we get by without a car for the most part. I do own a car, but I rarely. It went missing for a month or two, and it didn't really.
Oh, no.
It came back eventually, and then the battery was out of it for a while. So so I've definitely lived without a car for some time here in Portland, and Patrick doesn't have one. So yeah, it's a thing.
We have good public transit here too, and it's really a bikeable city as well. So there's that too.
Right. Well, okay. I will put that in quotations. The DC has a good transit. It has a transit
Yes.
system. I see someone that lives in DC and they know Metro. You're like, you.
Well, and I used to live in Virginia and worked in DC, so I'm very familiar with the subway there. And it's it's functional. It's nice that it's there. It's not great.
Absolutely. Right, and I lived out in the suburbs of Maryland, and so it was a little tough sometimes to get places. So, but to have all the materials to get to all these conventions, but I definitely want to make more. And the really cool thing that I get a lot is a lot of artists that I meet up with will tell me that my fans come to them at their booths and talk about me. Which is really like Charles Lerbach. He gets people all the time that are like, Ariel Burgess? And he's like, I have her number. And I'm just like, well, yeah, but you're Charles Lerbach. Like, what are they doing talking about me?
You've made a name for yourself in the community, no doubt. Like the art is fantastic. So
I hope everybody sticks around for the next phase that isn't Wheel of Time, or if it is or not, because I my skills aren't going to go away. And my determination isn't going to go away. And I hear that Sanderson is pretty lenient on fan art and sales. And I'd also am a huge Dresden Files fan.
Oh, yeah. I love Dresden.
So I would love to work on the Dresden Files.
So here's my question about the Dresden Files cover art.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest problem?
He doesn't wear a hat.
Yep. All right. That's the first and most important test. There's no hat in the books.
He hates hats. I also think the model is a bit too young. So those covers are photo illustrations. They are what they do to make those, which are really fun. Are you take photographs and then you paint over those. They are really cool, but you only have so much unless you do a lot of painting to work with as the model, their face. And I don't really picture Harry that way. Definitely his hair's gotten long because he hasn't cut it in a while. And I do think he is more handsome because, it's from his perspective.
Yeah.
Who other than a narcissist talks about themselves like they're really hot? Clearly all these like mythical creatures are very interested in him more than just his ability. So probably a really good looking guy.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you actually look at how tall he is and his coloring and all that kind of stuff, he's clearly, able to attract very, very, attractive people.
Well, although 6'6", I mean, the back problems. But I got to talking with Harriet and Maria about the height of everyone in the Wheel of Time, and I actually have a chart of that. That's something that this show is going to have an interesting time with because Rand is supposed to be 6'6", Lan is 6'5", Perrin's like 6'3", and Matt's actually the shortest at 6'1". And I always thought he was much taller than Perrin until I was corrected.
Yeah, it's all about ratio, I think, and height versus, he's skinny and tall. He looks taller because he's skinnier, but he actually is a little bit shorter.
I think that's one of those things that might be lost on the TV show. It's not really necessary that.
I think they're just going to cast the people who they want to cast, and if they're not the right height, then they're just not the right height, and that's not a big deal.
Right. I think as long as Rand is really tall, and Egwene and Moraine are rather short. Although she was like, well, Moraine is rather short at 5'2", and Egwene is at 5'1", and I was like, I'm 5 foot, and I was like, yeah, Moraine and Egwene are like my height, like power to the 5 foot people. There's only so much of the world we can see. And and then like learning they're like 5'1" or 5'2" is like, that's a whole inch of world that they can see that I cannot. And
a whole inch of world.
So it was a little bit of a sad fact for me, but whatever. I mean, this show, we'll see what they do, but as long as Rand is tall, because it's part of his personality, and like Avienda is tall, and
sure. And as we've seen with Lord of the Rings, height of the actor doesn't have to necessarily influence height of the character.
Right. Well, it just depends on how much money they want to spend on certain things. But high heels.
Right.
Lots of
boxes. Lots of boxes.
Lots and lots of boxes.
Because all you need is you just put the Rand up on a box next to Egwene and film the heads, and that's fine.
Yeah, but then you get all the fans like us being like, but did you see that in this scene their heights are actually here?
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait to start breaking down.
There's going to be
episodes.
So much of that.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise manages it somehow.
This character is actually 1 inch taller than that character, so this scene is inaccurate. Oh, well.
It's ego. It changes depending on their ego, that scene. That's how.
Well, and all the height stuff with Shea Ghul and going down in through the tunnel and was having to duck versus not having to duck, and you can actually be taller and still have to duck. There's all sorts of weirdness that goes on there, and then the jealousy among the Forsaken for Rand because he's taller and better with the power, but those are linked somehow.
Yeah, but Egwene was extremely powerful and very small.
Yes. There's female versus male.
Me, but,
males,
right.
It's they literally have a dick measuring contest. The women, that's not. It's all about length with the men, but for the women, that's not really a big deal. And there's tons of gendered stuff with the magic.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to see the diversity that they put into it, and I think that's one of the things that I am frustrated most about. And looking back at some of my old work is that it is less diverse than I wanted it to be, and I think that was just where my skill set was. Although my Tuan and the card art is probably one of my favorite pieces.
Mm-hmm. And I think that over time the fandom has come around to the fact that there is more diversity. I think we all sort of pictured these characters as white in our heads, as white, as a white person. I certainly pictured them as all white growing up, and it's only going back through, doing a closer reread, actually reading these descriptions, actually picturing these people accepting the idea that maybe they don't look just like me, and then re-examining the description and being like, oh, dark skin, brown hair, brown eyes doesn't mean a white guy with brown hair and brown eyes. It means someone who may be Middle Eastern coloring or... Right.
Well, I did talk to Maria about Edmund's Field, about that, because I was really curious about it. And I did paint Egwene especially too pale on the card art, and I darkened her every time I painted her, I've darkened her skin, but having the power around her, it always just makes her look lighter than I painted her.
Mm-hmm. She's always heavily illuminated.
Right. Especially because the last 3 times I painted her, it was her final scene. But I did talk to her about it, and she said that they're very, tan, but they could be Middle Eastern, but they are just tan.
Right.
Whereas, not all, but some of the people from Shan-Chen are more very darker skin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the sea folk as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely the sea folk. But I would love to see where they put in diversity that RJ didn't.
Yes. Yeah, I think that the opportunity is there, even if it's not specifically stated in the books, to add that in and still fit within the canon of what's written in the books.
Right. Like here, somebody was saying that the Andorians are British, and they are, and it is based on the British. So they were more like England.
Right. And I mean, the Camelot analogy is blatant, but there are other cultures.
Like the Chaldeans, a lot of people I've heard have said the Chaldeans are more like, they have the quote unquote tilted eyes thing. That what does he say that I don't remember his exact description, but it was they're not like of Chinese descent. They're more like of a bit of a Middle Eastern look to them.
I always imagine them much more like Israelite and
right.
That's the Gaza Strip like area, like that sort of. And because you can have people who would look basically like tan white people or people who are very much darker. So there's a lot of range there.
Well, and he does a mix of different like real cultures, and so you actually have a mix of real like physical features. Yeah, like the Malkirian had a bit of a Mongolian. Chaldeans had a mix of like Egyptian and Middle Eastern.
I've always I've come around to the Cairienin looking very Chinese with the shaved front of their being very short in stature and so seeing Moraine being a small Chinese woman would actually fit my headcanon really, really well.
That's something that's in my headcanon too. If anybody's ever watched Killing Eve, I now imagine Moraine as the main character of Killing Eve.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those times where it's like you Linda. Linda knows everything. She's one of the people that I call and I'm like, Linda, is this accurate? But Maureen, yeah, she's described as she's pale skin and very large, dark eyes. And yeah, you could totally do that. I think it would be great. One of the women that I always picture for her is Orla Grady. If any of you have seen Into the Badlands.
Oh, I haven't.
She plays one of the wives. Well, thank you. And real quick, a couple people did actually ask me to talk about RJ's office. I don't know if you guys have ever been there.
Only in pictures.
I got to go twice. It's actually two different buildings. There's the house that they live in and that they lived in, which is where we have our meetings sometimes. And then the actual office, which is a building. And it was quite cool. He had a library and by his computer desk. And it was, a language section of all the languages that he used to reference making the Old Tongue and all the languages in the Wheel of Time and armor. He had actual armor as well as armor books. And there's a skull in there that's got vampire teeth that, like, if they put that in the charity auction, I'm buying it because it's really cool. But the thing that actually struck me the most is it is 2 levels of a library. But it also, he had a lot of really amazing, like, Wheel of Time art and reference kind of art of maps and things. But he has a lot of pinup art. And some of it is pretty scandalous. So, you wouldn't think that, of how the series is, because there's a little bit of a reservedness to it. But walking through his office, I was looking at it like, man, he was my kind of dude. And also...
I mean, you can't read the books and not kind of think he's got an obsession with spanking.
Right.
There's something going on there. That's all I'm saying.
And anytime I read that, I would think of Holy Grail, like, a spanking. Me next. And, he was a Vietnam vet. But it was beautiful pinup art. And so when people had said things about my Moraine, I was like, you should go to his office because, like, they ain't nothing. Like... So I was like, I joked with Tavern Teas about making a Trolloc pinup calendar, like a swimsuit pinup calendar. I was like so on board swimsuit for that. I wanted it so bad. The pitch I did was with a Trolloc on a beach with a hot pink like banana hammock, and they were like, "No." I was like, "Come on." Funny, but no, they were like, "There's no money in that."
Oh, they're wrong about that. There's tons of money in that. Right.
Well, I can always do animal/looking people hybrids with banana hammocks that are not at all Trollocs on my Patreon. Yeah, so it was a really cool experience to go there. It's pretty cluttered and crowded, but as do things get when you're kind of artistic. I'm pretty neat, but that's because I'm also very clumsy. So, but I wanted to answer that question.
Well, and guys, it looks like Ariel's 2 patrons away from breaking 100 patrons. Let's see if we can do that for her.
Yeah, I am. I'm so close to 100.
It looked like you picked up a 1 or 2 while we were doing this live.
I did. I've had my phone on silent because I didn't want it to beep or ring because ABBA is my ringtone. Waterloo. And every amount counts. I get a lot of people who apologize to me for like only $1.
We get that too. I'm like, the $1's great.
Yeah. I grew up with very little money. I understand what it's like. The fact that people give me $1, it really matters. And, people who give me $25 is like, wow. But every amount, I'm always just so thankful and appreciative.
And it adds up. Like all the $1, like it does add up. Like it's not nothing. Like, yes, $1 isn't going to pay my rent, but when 50 of you are giving $1, well, that's that's utilities, right? Like,
right.
So
we also know what being poor is like. I understand that some people really don't have more than $1 to spare. I've totally been there. Luckily, doing maybe a little bit better now that I'm a little older, but it's still I'm not that much better.
Right. Well, and we fluctuate, and that's the thing that's scary about Patreon is it does fluctuate. It goes up and down.
For us, it's been much more reliable than, for example, ads or sales or anything like that.
Right. And this point with the way Facebook is being, they want you to put. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, but with my pages, when I put out an ad, Facebook says, just get your entire fandom by giving us $30. So we'll make sure all the people will see it. And sure, it's a business expense, but it's like, that $30 might be my groceries. So, can I really afford that? Sometimes I'll put $5 here or there to try and boost stuff. And it does help. I have about 4,000 some people on Facebook. Mm-hmm. But I think about how many of those people don't see anything I post because I can't afford it. So the $1 patron is, you help me. I'm at 100. That's so cool.
Hey. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody out there. Yeah.
We did it, What Spoilers?
Yeah. So I'll have to do something special for you guys on Patreon.
Awesome. And I think we would love to do something like this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
People have a lot of interest. You're hesitating a little bit. I think the favorite out there, just as a totally unscientific survey, just based on my observations over the last year or two.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and I do put myself out there the most. Paul came to me and was like, why do you advertise so much? Last year he yelled at me for doing more Wheel of Time art because he was like, it's ending. What are you doing? And I was like, they want it.
So badly.
So I was like, I don't care if you're 6 foot whatever. I will fight you. I'm Irish. So yeah, no, I really, really appreciate it, guys. I'll see if I can do something special. And I know I'm going to make some wallpapers for everybody out of the tarot card art just because I can. Yeah. No, Kelsey, don't bite their ankles. Remember that you're by their vital organs if you are very short. Just a short jab.
Kelsey was Brigida with the silver bow at the con. I don't know.
Custom contest.
She looked great. Yeah, I loved it. I love all the costumes. They're so cool. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the Patreon boost, for wanting to talk, and thank everybody here for the support. It's I think they're not good enough words.
Yeah, thank you for coming and agreeing to sit here with us for 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm a talker, so great. I like talking.
No, that's good. This all went really smoothly.
Thank you. It's great to be not talking to myself while I'm painting and actually like talking to other people.
No, thank you. And thank you for the years of amazing artwork. And I just want to say, if you want any help setting up a Discord, we got folks that can help you out. If that's something you're interested in.
People would gladly volunteer.
Yeah.
You'll be getting emails probably.
But yeah, I'd love to come back if you guys would love to have me.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Maybe not tomorrow, but
no.
But certainly, if you ever want to just come on, you're familiar with the podcast. We go chapter by chapter.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever just have a favorite chapter that you want to come on and talk about,
oh lordy, that's a hard.
I know. Well, we're starting the Fires of Heaven, so that's the Moraine Lanfear incident.
Oh
book.
yeah, that was a fun one. I have a funny story about painting that scene.
Oh yeah, share it.
Yeah, like, should I talk more or should I go?
Go for it.
Yeah,
We'll be here as long as you're willing to talk.
Yeah, that's going to be a long time. I'm the youngest of a lot of 13 cousins. Trust me, I never got to talk. So, no. So I had two friends of mine, my cousin and a longtime friend of ours, come over, and neither of them had read the series, and but both of them had done modeling, and said one of them was perfect for Moraine and the other was great for Lanfear. And I was like, all right, can you guys wear the tightest clothes that you have so I can see your body forms? By the way, if anyone here does art, make sure your models never, ever, 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 ever wear jeans. Tell them to take their pants off. It doesn't matter. It's for art. Because you can't see their kneecaps or their ankles, and it really does a hindrance to you. But anyway, so I basically just had them go out in the backyard and fight each other and just pull at each other's hair and grab each other's faces, and I took pictures the whole time. Well, but they couldn't help but laugh they were laughing the whole time, and I was like, no, you hate each other. And they're like, so all my references are them giggling as they tumble to the ground.
Maybe, I mean, I'm no artist, but maybe fairly easily translate a smile into a grimace,
I thought it would be easy,
Subtle
but there's
difference.
a lot of muscles in the face that change in a very different way. And I try to, and that's actually one of my least favorite things about that piece, is that they still don't look as angry as I wanted them to, because my models were laughing so much.
Looking at that photo, I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that now that you said it, that there's there's just a little bit of a smile.
Right. Just it's in the eyes, and yeah, that one was pretty fun. And the Rand piece that you were speaking of before, where he's walking through the glass columns, my original model has displaced hips, and I did not know that. He didn't impart that to me. So I was like, man, your hips are not lining up, so there's something wrong with your back. And he was like, oh yeah, I know. And I was like, well, it really messes with the anatomy. So I actually have an entirely different painting that I'd started based on him, and I had to get a different model and restart the whole thing. So that's the one that ended up getting sold, was the redo. Same thing with the lava scene, the Dragonmount's Revenge. The original perspective that I was coming from was behind, you can see the front of Androl with the opening of the gateway as lava's pouring down onto Trollocs, and they're running directly at the screen. And I had them clamoring as they're getting melted, which was really cool to me, but Bandersnatch really wanted an Ariel scene, which is not my forte. That's probably my least favorite out of all the Wheel of Time art I've ever done, because I think it was just not something I'm good at.
So what do we have to do to see the original?
The original sketch?
Yeah.
I have it. Even for those who've bought the map, I retouched that as well, because what Tor gave them was really tiny. It was 100 dpi.
Oh, geez. What do you work in terms of resolution?
600.
Okay. And generally, what size canvas are you working on?
Yeah, that changes, but it usually is 16 by 20. The 12 by 12 is not a forgiving format. Yeah, so I have done storyboarding. I did an entire trailer storyboarding for Eye of the World.
Oh, wow.
It was just clips of best scenes. That never really got used.
I love seeing the sort of process, the sketch, and how that becomes.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've always really envied particularly painters, because I just feel like it's a skill that I don't. Particularly the color and shading. I've always been fascinated that people can so accurately represent real life when I'm so awful at it. Maybe okay with the geometry, and I have a steady hand, but yeah, I just never felt. I've always had envy for people who are good at that, especially with the colors.
I don't have a good eye for color either.
Like watercolor and things like that. I'm so impressed by people who can do the layers and blend the colors to, wow. I may also be terrible at it because I'm a little bit colorblind, and it only gets worse with age, so that doesn't help anything.
Well, my grandfather was a painter, and he was colorblind. He was very colorblind.
Yeah?
But he just would read the labels of the tubes.
Oh, fair. If you have the technical knowledge, you can just apply it without actually being able to see it, I suppose.
Right. Well, and it's just about, I mean, you're painting in shades. So as long as you're getting a good light to dark ratio and a good foreshortening, distance, then it doesn't really matter.
My issue is always I mix up a nice, beautiful shade of brown every time I try and mix paints.
Making colors is very difficult, and it's one of the reasons I do digital is I didn't have a lot of money, and so I didn't have a lot of money for paints, and I was able to get my hands on Photoshop, and somebody had bought a Wacom tablet, and they didn't want it anymore, and so I bought it from them, and I started there at 17, started playing digital, and found that it was most intuitive to me because I could do layering and I could do all kinds of amazing stuff with it, and I didn't have to make colors. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to sit down and mix paints because for me, by the time I was done setting up, I was tired and I didn't have the proper space for it. Hi.
Our friend Kelsey just posted a picture of her dog staring at her, what I assume is her computer. You can hear the meows.
Yeah. Yeah, she's walking on my desk. I'm on Cooper's desk right now, but don't walk on my keyboard, please.
Have you picked up the Apple with the pencil, the iPad?
I have not. He's coming to take the cat away.
Oh, that's adorable.
She talks a lot. I have not tried it yet, no. I'm a bit of a stickler, like an old lady, when it comes to new technology. I'm like, back in my day, it's mostly I get used to stuff, and then I'm really worried about starting something new. But yeah, I would like to try it. And I was looking actually at tablets the other day, but right now I have 3 and they're pretty good. I get a lot of people suggest like a Cintiq or drawing on your screen, but that's like doing a mural. And I've done murals and they're very painful after a while. And you can tilt it, but still I've heard of most of them, you can't put your arm down on it. I use the mouse and the tablet at the same time because I'm ambidextrous.
Okay, that's cool. So you're basically have 2 drawing points at the same time, or are you just using like the pad to like select tools and then the mouse to like draw with?
Oh, I use the pad to draw and the mouse to either select tools, or some of the tools work better with the mouse than they do with the tablet. For instance, the marquee tool works a lot better with the mouse than the tablet, which it deselects or selects in weird ways. I'll go back and forth. Of course, you can't use them directly at the same time because your computer's like, what's happening?
Right. I find I do that a lot when I'm editing audio. I'm using the trackpad to zoom and scroll with my left hand while my right hand's on the mouse, selecting audio clips and deleting them and right clicking on them and fading in and out and stuff like that. And so like I kind of think of it like 2 joysticks first person shooter where like one's controlling the vision and the other one's controlling like where I'm clicking.
Oh yeah, like I grew up playing Sega Genesis and PlayStation, and yeah, that was very intuitive to me. And I grew up with computers, so it was easier for me to like get into that. And it gets a really bad rap. I have a lot of people who say like, oh, you don't have original work. I had someone on Twitter only like a week or 2 ago say like, I posted the Denarius painting that I did, and they said real painting, like not on the computer. And I was like, well, it's 2019, a lot of the art you're seeing is digital, right. And it doesn't do it for you. It doesn't. No. You can tell when something's badly done.
I took an oil painting class in college, and I was really into computers, and I really wanted to like I had a lot of the same trouble with color that I was talking about, and I couldn't mix the paints. And so then I sat down and redid one of my paintings in Photoshop, and it was far superior to what I've been able to produce with oil. And the teacher was just not interested. He was like, "Well, that's not."
It's a tool. Yeah. It's a tool, and it's whatever tool that you gravitate most towards. I did the charity art jam this year, which was my first time doing it. It was very fun, but I was very nervous because I couldn't use a computer. And while I was trained traditionally, and I do love doing traditional work, my most used medium is digital. I was very afraid that people were going to look at it and go, this doesn't look like these hyper-realistic paintings that you do. So I did something in colored pencil, and it was a lot of fun, but it looked very different. Funny story on that, I did Asmodean. Theme was light and dark balance, and I felt like he was a perfect balance between good and bad. And I had Cooper pose in his boxers, and because, again, body form. And he's holding like a piece of cardboard for a lyre. And I took a photo of that, and I printed it out and was working from that. And I was just working, and I had so many people come up and be like, I really like your model. and they're like, can we auction the model picture with it? And I was like, oh, I don't think that that's okay. And he came in, and he was like, yeah, totally.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you date someone who looks like Captain Jack Harkness.
John Barrowman, yeah, he really does. We met John Barrowman last Dragon Con a couple times. We met him every single day. We hung out with him. And they he looks like his own.
Yeah, the side-by-side pictures are astonishing.
Somebody asked if I sell these sketches or the storyboards. I haven't thought of it. I haven't thought about selling them in panels, so that's something to think about. I didn't really think that there'd be a want for that.
You'd be surprised how people love the sketches and the process, and especially if they're buying the final piece. I think a lot of people like to see it's like the behind the scenes or the commentary, what are the sketches that led up to the...
Right. And these are the kinds of things you'll see on Patreon. And you get to see them as I go. For instance, I was actually going to do a completely different thing for Perrin and Fail. And my Patreon patrons made different suggestions. And so I went with an entirely different theme for them because of Patreon. And, they have influence on my art. I just shared my favorite group of sketches with my favorite final painting. It is The Flame of Tarvalon, the moment that she, uses up all of her power. But every one of those sketches I wanted to do. Tavern Tease wanted the more close-up, but I was very insistent on making sure his face was reflective.
Yes.
In that crystal, which was pretty fun. And they let me do gore, because so often that I wasn't allowed to do I had to hide the gore, because they're afraid that people wouldn't want to buy stuff if I had blood.
Oh man, I feel like that sexes it up for me. That makes it more real and true to the story. I like that. Although I guess I can get it. If you're going to hang up something in your living room, you might not want to invite the in-laws over and have blood spattered everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's a good business decision that you want to reach as a wide audience as you possibly can. But for me, as an individual doing stuff like Patreon, I can do that kind of stuff, and I don't have somebody saying no because someone is going to want it.
That first sketch, with the sort of almost more of a mirror, that one made me go, ooh, I want to see that one in a final painting form.
The second one was it would have been 3 versions of Egwene. One of her using the flame and healing all the cracks. One of her actual body falling as it's dead. The other one of her spirit kind of ascending. Yeah. But they were like, that's a lot. I was like, that means so much to me.
Oh, but that scene, it means so much to so many people.
Yeah.
Balance is so important to the story, and I see Egwene as Rand's balance. I see her as the female dragon, the female sacrifice. And she actually dies, right? Unlike Rand, who, cheats death.
Yeah, but my first thought was but his babies are not going to look like him. Because he still had so many kids to have with Avienda, and then I was mad that, her legs were broken. I'm like, how is she supposed to give birth, and she's dealing with all this stuff? Give her some time, The other thing is, I've had a lot of people say, don't you want to do fan art for the Wheel of Time? And after working for 7.5 years, officially on it, making money, the idea of sitting and doing something that I can't make a living off of is kind of tough.
Right.
When I've already done so much on it.
Your hobby is your job now. I mean, you can't go back.
Yeah.
You can't go back to
Right.
making it a hobby once you've made money off of it.
Right. Now, I can always do sketches as rewards and Patreon, and that's just part of my system, and I can do stuff like that. I do share sketchbook snapshots from my sketchbooks on Patreon as well. So I don't mean to be plugging it so much, but it is where I do a lot of stuff.
No, that's why we want you on here.
No, I can't sell posters after October. So if you, seriously, if you want anything Wheel of Time from me, now, or order from Tavern Teas, I think they're out of the map poster. They're out of Egwene. They're out of Nynaeve. They still have Lan. They still have Moraines, I think. And I think they have Rand and Perrin left. But most of the t-shirts I made with them are gone. The Rand t-shirt was only pre-order, I think. You can't get the calendar stuff unless in person. They might still have some of it at DragonCon. So they're going to be at DragonCon this year, and anything they have left over, that's it.
Yeah, they're going to bring it, and it's just going to go.
Right.
Yeah, they were being really generous at JordanCon also. I don't think the people that I talked to had any idea who I was, and they still were because I bought the portrait that I mentioned and a couple of t-shirts, and they were like, oh, you bought all this stuff, why don't you grab a couple of things from the discount bin over there? And there's just this huge, the biggest piece of Tupperware I've ever seen, just filled with I don't know if they were flawed t-shirts or t-shirts that were unpopular or something, but I took a couple of more. I ended up coming home from JordanCon with 6 damn shirts or something. I don't know when I'm going to wear all of them, but I was like, if this is my last chance, I might as well go hard.
They do that. I know some people bought so many posters that they gave them some dice bags. But real quick, to answer the tarot series question, I had the idea myself a couple years ago. We were going to do an entire tarot deck. Tavern Teas was really unsure that there was a market for that. Again, I grew up with tarot cards, so I was like, no, there's a market. We actually created an entire chart for every character and every card in the major arcana and then the smaller. But because of we were actually getting rolling on it when we found out about the right stuff. So it got scrapped along with 2 board games and a couple other things. We were in the middle of making a board game that was a D&D board game where you could play an Aes Sedai and go on a quest with your warder and your team. And I had done the artwork for all the characters on that. I actually had used fans who were big in the community as references because they were supposed to be unnamed. So Ebony, who does the online games, the online community in Facebook,
Ebony's
was
great.
going to be part of the game. Yeah, she's amazing. But that got scrapped. They were going to make a Snake and Foxes. There's a ton of stuff. It just kind of got scrapped. But I had so many people still asking me that I was I can do 7 paintings for JordanCon this year, and I'm going to do tarot cards. I can make some people happy. I did get so many questions, even though I wrote everywhere I'm not making a full deck.
Right.
Am I making a full deck? And I was like, that's 76 cards. 7 paintings in a month and a half was a lot.
Right.
A lot. I was working pretty much Monday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 a.m. going to bed and waking up, 10 a.m. to 5 a.m. going to bed and waking up until I was done. Took a couple days off. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
That's something I didn't ask about is how much effort and time do you put into a typical painting? Because you produce so much, it's hard to believe that you haven't just dedicated huge chunks of your life to painting these characters.
I have. I am fast. I'm very fast, and being digital is part of how I am so fast. It is a huge chunk of my life, and it is a lot of work. My entire 20s I have spent doing Wheel of Time work. The first 2 years, which nobody cares about anyway, of your 20s, I didn't. But, I'll be 30 next year, and I've worked on it for the majority of my, becoming an adult, and it's been a really amazing process getting to know fans and how to work within the business and do production style stuff. But on a typical painting, it's diverse. It's different. For instance, the Moradin painting, which I think is one of my best, only took a day and a half. No, it was a day and a half. The Demandred painting took 3 days, whereas Grendel took 2 months, and the chair alone took 2 weeks. And when I say 2 weeks, I mean, this is my day job. I get up in the morning, I have breakfast, I sit down, I do research, I look at modeling, and then I paint, and I get painting, take breaks, do homework with the kids. They go to bed, and then I'm working again until, 1 or 2 in the morning. When no one's home, though, I'm working until like 5 or 6 in the morning. Sometimes sun comes up. I watch horror movies all night while I paint. Or I listen to music. I did a lot of cheesy horror movies in this past tarot card deck because it gets so late that music drones podcasts, you're not listening. But, some dumb kid who left the door open and there's the scream guy running at them. You're just like, oh man, you're going to get it. It's so much easier while you're
context
painting,
doesn't matter so
right?
much. Yeah.
Don't put your weapon on the side. You're dumb. And then I look back at my painting and I'm focusing on that. And yeah, what's in the closet? It's where those kids could get strangled with a cordless phone.
What's in the box? Oh, yeah.
Right. Yep, that was one day. A day and a half. I started him late at night and then, sat down. It all depends on how good a model I have, how good lighting I have. And sometimes just how many times my computer quits out.
Yeah.
My model just came in and brushed off his shoulders. Sometimes it's, when I was doing the cards, I didn't have a very good computer and I had so many times where it just shut down in the middle of me painting and I'd lose hours of work. And I'd have to open it back up and get back to it.
Oh, God. What a nightmare.
I was having trouble with Photoshop while I was painting Grendel and had it shut down a bunch of times. And then I moved on to Lanfear, and Adobe did an update in the middle of the night that turned the pen into more of a scroll for people who use screens. Where they use the pen just to scroll along. And I couldn't draw anymore. I lost all sensitivity. I had to call my brother at 3 a.m, who works in IT, to help me break Windows and break Photoshop, the code, so I could finish the painting because I couldn't wait for an update. So that was fun. I have a PC. It's Frankenstein. I piecemeal it together. But it's pretty high quality now. But, again, the Patreon and all the stuff that people buy from Tavern Teas and all the Society 6 and side stuff, that helps me afford things like a better processor. So that way my computer doesn't shut down in the middle of working. And it's not like I'm cool as a cucumber when that happens. I mean, there's a lot of crying and screaming and punching
cursing
things.
And yeah.
Yeah, I've, that guttural scream, I've done that before because it's, because, you in that moment of panic, you're like, when's the last time I saved? So, I'm definitely a save freak. I save a lot and often always do that. Always, especially when you're working in big files. And make sure that you're working in stuff that you can, your computer can handle. Also, Adobe is terribly programmed and it will always be. Yep. It's like, oh, Adobe. They are awful. But I love their products. It's just they're processing cumbersome. Definitely save often, save and save multiple files. There's PSD and there's, I'm forgetting it right now, but there's a larger PSD file that you can save it as. Save multiples because sometimes it shuts down and then it's corrupt.
Right.
And that happened once with Grendel. It was lucky that I was able to retrieve something that worked. But yeah, I have a corrupt version of Grendel that's just it's broken. It broke.
Sometimes when it broke, ain't be fixed.
Oh, our friend Aradia is asking have you considered doing any Broken Earth art? I don't know if that's a series you've read. It's a fairly new one.
I've never heard of it.
One of the costume contests was a Stone Eater from the Broken Earth this year. I don't know. She was in the all-white get up with the white face.
Sure. Oh, yeah, the stone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she was really cool.
That's from that series, the Broken Earth series. Mm-hmm. And there's some pretty incredible visuals in there, and I can't recommend it highly enough as a book series.
Really powerful themes about slavery and ethnicity and all kinds of things going on there.
Is there any other fandom that you are as dedicated to as the Wheel of Time?
Yeah, I've been looking for something new. I am a big fan of the Millennium series, the Elizabeth Salander, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I read those before the movies, which I think the movies are really, really good, especially the American ones. A lot of Anne McCaffrey. I grew up with a lot of her stuff.
Me too.
And like the Crystal Singer series, which is really good. And I had my entire family read The Wheel of Time, and my mother was like, there's a lot of stuff that's like this. And, so she was handing me stuff that was a lot like it. But I haven't been reading as much lately. Usually when I read is when I can't fall asleep. And lately I've been working until my eyes are bloodshot.
Well, I will say the audiobooks for Broken Earth are excellent.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of fan art out there.
Not yet. New series, so we'll give people a couple of years and it'll get flooded.
Right, and I'm interested in Brent Weeks. A friend of mine is a big fan of his and highly recommends. I don't know if you guys heard me talk about the Drinkomancy podcast, but she does that. It's a podcast where they read supernatural romance novels and they get drunk and they discuss consent and behavior in society. And
Oh, nice.
Say the name again?
Drinkomancy.
Drinkomancy, okay.
It's really fun. It's definitely not safe for work, but I've been listening to that a lot. And they suggest good books and bad books, and one of them is the True Blood series. So I watched the show. I'd like to read the books because I heard they were by far better. I did read Game of Thrones, but I actually feel like the show is better than the books.
Interesting.
I might have to agree with you on that. Although,
Yeah,
that's just because the books have, anyway.
it's mostly some of the perspectives.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the head of somebody doing something really horrible.
Fair.
Yep, Drinkomancy. Seriously, listen to it. It's awesome, and they just started. They're looking for people to check it out. Yeah, they're starting the Charlene Harris Sookie Stackhouse series. But yeah, I feel like RJ, he was very tactful with his villains. Like they were scary. I think Semirog is probably the absolute scariest of all of them. A doctor using their abilities to heal the way that she does is mighty scary. Her painting only took a day and a half as well.
I always liked that about the Wheel of Time series, that there is, gore, sex, violence, rock and roll, whatever else you want. Mm-hmm. But it's not so egregious that that's what the story is about. It's not about the characters hooking up and then murdering a bunch of mofos. There's a lot. Right. There's so much more that the sex becomes a sideline, not very important unless we're analyzing some character's motivation,
And he did write women. There was definitely some grievances I had, but not as big as so many other male authors. Because for one thing, he doesn't write like they breasted boobily down the stairs.
Breasted as a verb. That's perfect.
Right. There's so many times that it's just like, wow. I was reading a clip of a series recently. I did a cover for. A wonderful author. I love the guy, but there's a scene that he gave me that was just like, he described the male, they're both two zombies, and the male zombie's naked and the female zombie's naked. And the male zombie describes as crawling and creeping and like moving disjointed. But the female zombie, the only thing he described is how saggy her boobs were. And I was like, she's a zombie. Why do we care? So RJ didn't do that. And he created characters that happened to be male or female and were whatever.
And are sexual beings, as we all are.
Right. There were societal, constraints at the time that you can tell are still there. But that's why I'm excited to see what they do with the series and to update it.
We've been talking for a while, and we can take a break, or we can call it for a night. We're sort of, I can tell we're reaching the end of our ability to talk coherently. So I want to insert a pause and a stop here. So
pretty exhausting lately. But we're all fans. We can talk and talk and talk.
Right, and that's one of the things I definitely knew from having a conversation with you at Jordan Con is that we'd get on here and we wouldn't want to stop talking about the books.
Right. Well, I think we talked for about 2 hours.
Yeah. We just sat down and because that was when things were winding down, and it was just nice to sort of sit and have a casual conversation.
Right. That's one of the best parts about Jordan Con. So anybody here who's interested in going, stay for CouchCon. That's when you get your really good time in with people.
Yeah, don't leave Sunday, guys. Sunday is the best time to like just chill. And that's the best time to like really meet people who are involved in the fandom, like Ariel. Mm-hmm. after the craziness of the con is over and everyone's just sort of relaxing, but most of the people involved are still sort of there, finishing up, closing out. It's a really
Were you
point.
here for last year's CountCon?
I was there, but I didn't realize it was going on, so I actually went up to the room for a good chunk of it. I only came down later at night and realized that there was still a lot of people hanging out. So I didn't know about it.
Right. So this year was really chill this year. Last year, there was people up on tables and we were all, like, the entire room was doing shots. So it was really excitable because you also get a lot of people who travel. Hi. You get a lot of people who travel and are like, I bought all this alcohol that I cannot bring with me. I gotta finish it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get a lot of people who just want to hang out, but it is fun because you just sit and you play board games, and I'm terrible at board games, so I just talk to people. And, I think half the artist gallery this year was just hanging out at a table. Photo somewhere of all of us looking exhausted. That's our shawarma picture. But yeah, I do Dragon Con sometimes as well. And I do try to make it to some of the Wheel of Time stuff, but it's also very expensive. So likely not this year.
So is there anything in particular you want to shout out? Any projects? I mean, other than your Patreon, is there any way people can support you?
Right now, I do take commissions, and I really enjoy doing that with people. Right now, I'm pretty booked up on that. I'm trying to take some time. I do have a Society 6, so that really is also helpful. Patreon is probably one of the biggest things. But yeah, I think right now it's just I'm just kind of gathering myself and dealing with a lot of back end things that are going on. Yeah, the tarot card posters are on there if people are interested. I wanted to make sure that anyone who couldn't make it to JordanCon had a chance to buy those. Because again, everybody matters to me. I don't make a ton of money off of Society 6, but it's a way for you guys to get the art. Tavern Teas is almost out of everything. I think they have a few posters left.
Is there an end date for people who want to purchase your stuff? An official end date?
October 29th, I think.
But at this point, you can't produce anymore. So,
no.
When it's out, it's out. And it'll most likely, most of it will be out before that deadline.
Pretty soon here, yeah. I'm running out. It's really sad to me because I want to get, everybody wants something.
Get it now, kids.
But your Patreon is probably one of the best ways to keep up with a lot of my stuff and make suggestions. Definitely petition Sony. The writers are on, the Amazon team are on Twitter. Tweet them. I would say you guys are doing an admirable job already, and I tweet them as much as possible. You know, if that doesn't pan out, I've got plenty of other stuff that I'm looking forward to trying. I'm going to try going to Convergence, which is in Minneapolis, in July, and I will have private art for sale. And probably not this year, but next year, because I just moved.
I hope that the surge of interest and support from the fans was heartening and financially helpful.
Yeah, it has been. It definitely has been. And I hope to keep growing it, going from here. And my hope is to make more book covers and work on some shows. And, you're going to see me around.
Awesome. Well, you're always welcome to come back anytime. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?